Hi, this is Dr. Jaron Soren here with Balance Point Chiropractic. At our clinic here in Caldwell, Idaho, we look at utilizing natural therapies to help people regain their health. And today we're going to have a little bit more of an in-depth discussion about posture and what posture is. So posture, again, whenever someone hears that word, we tend to sit up straight or try to stand up really straight and tall. But it's a lot more complicated than just sitting up straight or standing up straight. What we want to look at are really 5 points. So posture is basically how we balance all the different parts on top of our body. So it's how we balance our head on top of our torso, and our torso on top of our pelvis, and then our pelvis on top of our legs. So we have those 4 main sections, and when one of those sections might shift off, then it affects the entire chain of movement all the way up from our head to our feet, or from our feet to our head. It can go either direction, really. So they're kind of like building blocks, one on top of the other. And if one's off, then that whole stack of blocks might tip over. That's the risk that we have, right? So we're more likely to fall if our posture's off. But one question we look at is whether or not our body's balanced. So if there are 5 people standing up and we look at their posture, really all of them are balanced, because posture is just simply how we balance our body and all those parts one on top of the other. There are 5 main factors that we want to look at when we discuss posture. The first one is movement. In other words, our body's made to move. Our body's not made to sit in a chair. I have a friend who I was recently talking to, and he said, I never thought that sitting in a desk working at a bank or at any other location really would make me feel so sore. And it's interesting that he pointed that out. But our body's made to move. If someone had the choice, most people would choose to move rather than sit in one position and not move for an hour or 2. So our body's made to move. That's number 1. Number 2 is balance. Again, as I mentioned already, posture is simply how we balance all the different parts of our body one on top of the other. So our body is balanced, otherwise we'd fall over. The third factor is patterns. Our body moves in patterns of motion. So every time our foot hits the floor, we're connected from our foot all the way up to our head. Or when our bottom sits on the chair, we're connected in that area. So our body always moves in patterns. It's impossible for us to move our arm without our back muscles getting engaged. So if you actually put your hand on the small of your back and move your arm, you'll feel those muscles back there actually move. Our body moves in patterns of motion. That's why a lot of times people will say, well, my low back started hurting, but then a couple weeks later my neck started hurting, or I started getting headaches. Because that chain of movement is all affected by that pain or the changes that we experience in our body. So our body moves in patterns of motion. The fourth factor is compensation. And what that means, compensation basically means when we hurt, our body adapts to that motion, okay? Or our body compensates for that pain, would be a better way to put that. So when we talk about compensation, well, if you've ever seen someone whose low back is hurting, they might be kind of hunching forward trying to compensate for that. Their body's looking for any movement pattern that isn't painful. So our body compensates for pain. Now what's interesting about compensation, what we find there is even when the pain goes away, studies have shown that the altered movement patterns are persistent, which means we move differently when we're hurting, and then when we stop hurting, our body's developed a pattern of movement through compensation, and it's stuck in that pattern now. So again, our body chooses the path of least resistance. It's like water flowing down a mountainside, and it's going to choose the easiest way. And once those patterns are developed, the body tends to stick with those patterns. An example I like to give of that, if we cross our arms one over the other, it feels normal and natural, right? Now if we took and we tried to cross the other way, and go ahead and try that, cross the other way, and see what happens, see how that feels. Our mind has developed a pattern, and one way feels right and the other way will never feel right to us. So once those patterns are set and we're moving through patterns of compensation, we tend to get stuck in those. Now, the fifth thing is adaptation. So adaptation can be good or bad, right? Adaptation basically one of my favorite messages is that our body is made to adapt. Our bodies are made to adapt properly to the stressors in the environment, to anything that life or the world might throw at it. Sometimes it throws a little bit too much and we have a breakdown in systems. But really our body's made to adapt. Now, if we're adapting, a lot of times if we're compensated, that's why we might see like arthritic changes or a breakdown in joints or knee pain or pain throughout the body that comes and then might go away and then comes back again. That's our body trying to adapt to those stresses in life. So as we look at those 5 things, we look at how strong posture can help improve those factors. And really what we're looking at is 3 parts, three main focuses, and that's the main focus of this series of videos that we're going to look at. So we look at balance, we look at alignment, and we look at motion. Okay? And those are all connected in how they function and how they interact. So what we see is if our balance is off, then ultimately our alignment is off. It's like those blocks stacked one on top of the other. If alignment is off, then balance is affected as well then, because the blocks will fall over, right? If alignment is off, then motion patterns are changed in the body. And if the motion patterns change, then alignment changes. So that's the same for balance and motion. Those are all affected. So any change in any one of those areas can cause a change in the other area as well, or will cause a change in the other area as well. So through these videos, we're going to look at how balance, alignment, and motion patterns can help improve posture or help give us strong posture. So that's the goal of these 10 strong posture exercises. If you have any questions while watching these, please let me know. We'll talk to you soon.